as you know that there are 4 skills of any type of communication, like listening, speaking, reading and writing. Listening is one of the receptive skills of communication, because 2 skills are productive and 2 skills are receptive. Like speaking and writing is productive skill, and listening and reading are your receptive skill. So effective communication is not only based on only speaking and writing, but equally based on listening and reading skills. There is a question in your mind that what's communication? Communication is the process of passing information and ideas and understanding from one person to another. Means it's a two-way process, and there must be 2 persons at least. One is speaker and the second is listener, or you can say one is sender and second is receiver. And this process of communication includes transmission of information, ideas, emotions, knowledge, messages by using speech, signals, behavior, etc. Then the process of communication is like that. Sender encode the message through the mediums that are called channels. Then it sends to the receiver. Receiver decodes the message, means understand the message, then respond. Is like a feedback for the sender. Sender understand that the message is sent to the receiver correctly or properly. Sender is the speaker, or you can say who wants to say, who wants to send the message to the receiver. The process of sending the message is called encodes, and through which mediums the message is sent to the receiver, these are called channels. And through these channels the message is sent to the receiver, and the receiver receives the message, then decodes it. Decodes means understand in his or her own language, then respond. Respond may be in negative way or in positive way, but it's like a feedback for the sender. Sender understand that the message is sent correctly or properly or not. So this process is very important for the point of view listening, because listening starts from this step, receiver. Receiver records the message and then responds in his own way. There are 4 steps in listening skill. One is reception or sensing, then decoding, then evaluating, then responding. Due to receptive skill, in listening skill, the receiver receives the message. Means the first step of listening skill is to receive or hear speech sounds to understand the message. Then decoding, then try to understand the message. Means this process, this step of listening skill is influenced by listener, social, cultural, educational, professional and intellectual forms of references. And this process of decoding decodes the message into information, means encoded message changed into information. Then evaluating. Evaluating is like an analysis of the message. After understanding the message, the listener try to analyze the message, to evaluate the message, to try to understand the illicit as well as explicit meaning of the message, whether he agree with the message or disagree with the message. Then he responds. Respond is like a feedback for the sender. So this process includes in listening skill, and communication is successful only when the process of sending message is done properly. Then types of listening. There are two types of listening. One is active and second is passive. In active listener, the listener remains active, pay attention to the speaker to understand the main points of the message and show interest in the speaker, avoid distraction in the process of listening, and create a new understanding by using his background knowledge and responding non-verbally to encourage the speaker and put the speaker at ease. These are the features of active listener. On the basis of these features, you can say this listener is active or this listener is passive. But in passive listener, the listener remains passive, only understand the message, not evaluating, not responding, only receive the message and understand it. There are 3 examples of active listening and 3 examples of passive listening. Active listening like evaluating listening, attentive listening, or empathetic listening. And passive listening includes superficial listening or appreciative listening, then focused listening. In passive listening, superficial listening, as you know that you are hearing a radio program while reading a newspaper. This type of listening is called superficial listening. Understand the speaking or understand the message on the surface level. Means there is a little bit awareness of the message in the passive listener. This listening is also called zero listening. And second is appreciative listening. The purpose of appreciative listening is to give pleasure. Means it's for the purpose of enjoyment. Like you are listening a musical program, then it's called an appreciative listening. Then focused listening. The main purpose of focused listening is to get specific information. Like you are on the railway station and there is an announcement on a railway speaking, then it's called a focused listening. This is a very common type of listening. Like classroom teaching, classroom lecture. You only get the information if you are passive listener. And if you are active listener, then evaluative listening. You not only understand the message, not only understand the speaker, but also try to understand the main theme or important points of the message, and then evaluating and analyze the message and responding in positive way as much as possible. In evaluative listening, you understand the message and then develop a line of thought. Means you analyze the message significance, whether it is significant or not, whether you agree with the message or disagree with the message. Then conclusions are drawn, and after drawing the conclusion, you respond. And next type of active listening is attentive listening. Attentive listening is very interactive and productive listening, in which the listener can produce his or her own ideas through the process of interacting, like seminars, group discussion, classroom lectures, in which listener asks some questions and responding non-verbally to encourage the speaker. In empathetic listening, you can say that the listener can understand the body language of the speaker or emotionally attach with the speaker, understand the feelings, emotions and thoughts of the speaker. These are called types of listening, which are divided into main two types, active and passive. Then the characteristics of a listening. Characteristics of a good listening. First, don't talk. Don't talk while listening the speaker, because it creates a type of disturbance in the process of listening, in the process of understanding. You can't understand the message, the speaker, whether there is a lot of noise in the process of listening. So don't talk while listening. Second, don't let your mind wander. Means fully pay attention to the speaker or to the message. Don't let your mind wander here and there. Like you are listening the classroom lecture, but you involve in other activities, like thinking about another subject. Then don't let your mind wander here and there. Means there must be presence of mind in the process of understanding or listening. Third one, avoid distraction. If there is any type of distraction, like physical distraction, you are interested in the speaker or you are interested in the lecture, but your friend is not interested in the lecture. He tries to create any distraction in your listening process. Then it creates the disturbance for all the listener and for the process of listening. So avoid distraction while listening, because it's a good characteristics of a good listening if you avoid distraction in the listening process. Be patient. Some listeners reaches to the conclusion without listening the whole speaking, and conclusion are drawn. So first you listen the speaker patiently, then draw the conclusion. Fifth, put the speaker at ease. Suppose there is an example of classroom lecture. Then put the teacher at ease. Make the teacher feel comfortable. If the speaker feels comfortable, then he can taking the lecture or deliver the lecture properly, and you can understand the lecture properly and fully, understanding it. So put the speaker at ease. Sixth, don't prejudge. If you want to listen, if you want to understand any message, then don't be prejudiced. Means you have not already in your mind before listening that this is wrong and this message is correct, or this speaker is wrong or this speaker is correct. So don't prejudge the speaker or prejudge the message. Empathize with the speaker. I have already told you that the process of decoding, the process of understanding the message is influenced by your social, cultural, educational, professional and intellectual frames of reference. So empathize with the speaker means you try to understand the body language, the feeling, emotions and idea of the speaker. Not only receive speech sounds or understand the message, but try to understand the speaker, her or his emotions. And 8, ask questions. Means if you ask questions to the speaker, then it's a process of interaction between the listener and the speaker. Ask questions means If you ask question, then it's a good feedback for the speaker and it encourages the speaker. Then take notes. If you have the habit of taking notes, then it's good for understanding any message. Suppose there is a classroom lecture and you are taking the notes of the lecture, then it is beneficial for you, for the listener. 10. Eye contact. If it is possible to make the eye contact between the speaker and the listener, then it's also good for the good listening. These are the characteristics or rules of a good listening. Except these characteristics, there are a lot of characteristics of a good listening, but main characteristics of a good listening are these. Then the barriers in listening. Barriers are called like hindrance or obstacle in the listening process. There are 4 main types of barriers in listening process. First one is physical barrier. Second one is psychological barrier. Third one is linguistic barriers. And fourth one is cultural barriers. These barriers are also included in communication barriers, but communication barriers are very wide in comparison to listening barriers. Listening barriers are 4 main types: physical, psychological, linguistic and cultural. Physical, like noise. If there is noise in the process of listening, then it creates an obstacle in the process of listening. Then physical discomfort. If the speaker or the listener don't feel comfort in the process of listening, then it also creates a hindrance in your understanding process. Then physical distractions. I have already given you the example, like you are interested in the listening, but your colleague or friend is not interested in the listening and he tries to create any type of hindrance in your listening process. Then it's called physical distraction. Then distance. There should be proper distance between the speaker and the listener. Like the example of classroom teaching or classroom lecture. There is a proper distance between the teacher and the student. Not too much far or not too much near. So there is a proper distance between the listener and the speaker. Psychological barrier. Emotional disturbance. Anxiety or over arousal of feelings. Emotional disturbance. If the speaker or the listener is emotionally disturbed, then it shuts the door of the mind of the listener to entry any information. So present and don't be tense while listening a message. Then anxiety. If you are disturbed with the feeling of sadness, anxiety, then it also creates a hindrance in your understanding process. Over arousals of feelings. As you know, when you are too much emotionally disturbed, then you can't hide your feelings and these feelings are over arousal. Linguistic barrier. Improper message encoding. Means if the sender send the message properly, then it is not received properly. So if the improper message encoding, then the improper message decoding. Ambiguous language. If the speaker use ambiguous language, means multiple meaning language, then it also creates a hindrance in the listening process, because listener can't be able to understand the multiple meaning language. Then difficult word meaning. If the speaker use difficult word, not easy words, then these are not understandable for the listener, and this is a type of obstacle in the listening process. Then cultural barrier are those like cultural differences, different norms and different values. It is not possible that all the listeners belong to same culture or same social norms or same society, same family background. So there is a difference among the listeners. So it's not possible that the speaker belongs to the same culture or same society and the listener also belongs to the same culture or same society. Because of cultural differences, because of social differences or norms differences or values differences, these are also create a hindrance in your listening process. So you should avoid these types of barriers in your listening. Then effective communication or successful, impressive or effective communication is done only when you pay attention to the speaker, show your interest and be active listener, not passive listener. So these are the process of or characteristics or barriers of your listening skill, which is a part of your communication skill. And language plays an important role in communication because language is used as a tool in your communication process.